Diego.
Whoops,
Oh,
that was me. That was me.
we're
Yeah,
on the
be careful.
record.
Be careful what you say now.
That's okay. I got something that we'll probably do out of town, meaning out of New York, maybe in a year and a half. That Sarah Silverman musical I told you about, we're doing probably this coming spring. So there's a bunch of things going on.
Oh, that sounds cool.
And Erik and I are just at the very early stages of writing something new with Itamar Moses, who wrote this Dead Outlaw book.
Yeah. What's can you give us a little tease about what it is?
The only thing I can say is it's basically 100 years of public relations in the United States.
Oh, okay.
You'll know off the record, I'll tell you like later, but you'll know some of the names probably because we're as a historian.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's a salute to the concept of convincing people to buy things they don't need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Salute.
Man, I talk about that stuff all the time, because it's the amount of stuff, even in the context of the museum, you look at it and it's all stuff that somebody was convincing people to buy, and those are our artifacts here. It's like, we got little baubles and prints and just all kinds of stuff, and it's like, man, nobody really needs these things, yet we've got a museum full of them. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
The big Dead Outlaw merch. I was asking the merch guy what sells the most and what has the biggest margin, and he said, "Oh, by far the refrigerator magnet." It's like a 25-cent item that sells for $11, and it feels like a bargain because everything else costs $50.
Yeah. Now, are you guys still selling stuff on the website and things like that?
I doubt it. I don't know.
Okay.
We just submitted the cast album for a Grammy, so we're hoping. It doesn't mean that much, a Grammy award, but we're hoping to get a nomination at least, so we have an excuse to travel.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
All right, 1 minute. This is exciting.
What's going to change in 1 minute?
Nothing. We're just going to talk.
We're just going to talk. Yeah, we're just
do what Michael tells us to do.
It's like, do you guys want to introduce yourselves or?
Sure. Just tell us what to do. We'll do it, including.
Okay. We'll I don't know. I'll introduce myself as the director of the museum, and then you guys can let everybody know who you are. They probably already do, we'll assume. So
and
thank you.
6 in the waiting room. I'm going to admit them. Here we go.
Yeah.
It's like a dentist office.
Yeah.
Wait till we start talking. Then it's really going to be like a dentist office. All right.
Oh, yeah.
We just keep admitting all, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, there's 3 of us who can do it. So,
I saw Chantry. Chantry's the boss, man. So he's watching us.
All right. I think Jen Small is going to be on this.
Yeah, I saw her email on the list, so that's pretty awesome.
That's nice.
Okay, well, I guess it's noon. So, well, hello everybody. I'm Michael Williams. I'm the director of the Oklahoma Territorial Museum and Historic Carnegie Library in Guthrie, Oklahoma. And With me today is David Yazbek and Erik Penna, and we're going to talk about Elmer McCurdy and Dead Outlaw and other things. You already missed the conversation about steaks and whiskey and cigars and such. So, heck yeah. And so anyway, I remember when you guys first came here. Okay, well, let's start with that. It's like I got an email from Jen. She sent me an email and talking about a musical. A musical about Elmer, and I was kind of like, I was like, oh boy, what is this all about? And so as I'm reading it, I'm coloring in the names and hitting search, and then you guys are popping up as Grammy winners and Tony winners, and I was like, oh, these are like legitimate people. It's like, this isn't just some some person that has an interest in Elmer that wants to do a musical or write a screenplay, because I get those quite a bit. I mean, it's just, we're kind of the center of that Elmer McCurdy story, and so eventually everybody lands on us, and asks us. So, but no, I remember when you guys came to town, and it was on 89ers Day, and I want to say it was like 2022, wasn't it? 2022.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you guys came, and I don't know, did you guys eat potluck and everything? I don't remember if you did or didn't.
Well, we ate at that restaurant by the railroad track.
Okay. Yeah. Gages. Yeah. Yeah. And but anyway, you guys came in, and I think the very first thing I did was ask, how did you get into this? How did you get into Elmer? And I think that's a good place to start today. It's like, how'd you guys get into this?
Well, I got into it many, many years ago. I had a friend from college, but we were not in college still, but we were still young, like 30 years ago, and maybe 35 years ago. And he said, "You ever hear this story, this about Elmer McCurdy?" And I said, "No." And he apparently, when he was in high school, and when Elmer's, when they buried, finally up in Pawhuska, when they buried him, and there was a news story that also included his history. His mother, who did not, his parents were divorced. His mother would send him clippings from interesting stories. She started sending clippings. It was also on the news, sometimes on the national news, and that's how he got into it. He said he told his brother, who wrote a song called the Cowboy Outlaw or something like that. He wrote one song about Elmer McCurdy, but it was very generalized. This was a long time ago. That guy's name is Brian Dewan, really great songwriter. So the two brothers had sort of shared with me the story of Elmer McCurdy, which grabbed me immediately. This idea about someone who wanted fame, who wanted, riches the easy way, who was a recidivist, who was an addict, an alcoholic. Like, it's just so American, everything about the story. And then finally, and I had been studying Zen Buddhism for several years when I heard the story, it became also about what it meant to be alive and what memory means, and these sort of illusions of immortality through memory, because he also clearly, like Jesse James, was dead, but Jesse James was a hero, and he wanted to be like that. So all these things really hit me and stuck with me. And when I started writing musicals, it definitely sprung up as a possibility. I asked, there were a couple of playwright friends of mine who I asked about it, one in particular, and I thought it'd be right up his alley. And he said, you got a problem here, Dave, because the main character, he's dead. Like
Yeah.
so that was the big hurdle, quote unquote. But, sometime 15, 20 years ago, I told the story to Erik, uh, Della Penna, who's obviously right, I think on the box next to me on the call right now. Erik and I played in a band together, and Erik's a great songwriter. And I don't know, we started talking about it, and then we decided let's see if we can write some songs, write a song cycle. And that's how it really started. When we came to you, we knew we were going to make an album.
Mm.
And I think we sort of thought, oh, eventually maybe this will turn into a musical, since I'd already written 5 or 6 musicals, right? So my foot was in the door.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also kind of late COVID when we started talking about it. So we were like, what are we going to do? Because we don't know when this thing is going to end. And we did. So what we did was we said, we'll do a documentary about Elmer, but we'll use our songs. And so when we came to you, we were sort of we were in that phase.
Mm-hmm.
And coming to you and coming to the museum and handling the weapons that were used to kill him, and hearing your theories, or actually the facts of how you tracked down the gun and all this stuff, and the truth about there are 2 books that are out there that we had read, and some of that stuff wasn't accurate. And that conversation really helped us start thinking about maybe we should do this as a show. And then we called Itamar Moses in. We were already performing the songs in clubs, or at least maybe we did once. He came in, he said, oh, I can write a narrative for this. And we started performing these songs with our band in clubs, but with me telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the storyteller. And then Erik and I were singing all the songs. And then it just kept growing from there and evolving. And that's the whole story. And now I'll shut up.
Yeah, no, I remember, like I said, I remember when you guys came, you were talking documentary. You didn't know, like, feature length, or, Netflix series, or what. I mean, it was kind of, it was just a project type of thing, and so that's interesting. But you talk about these songs, and you guys were playing these songs. There was one night I'm out on the back porch, and I'm listening to Spotify, and Erik comes on. All right. And it's a song called Don't Need Money. Tell me about that song, because this is off an album that was like 2021, something like that, when I looked at it.
Yeah, that was I took a stab. It's a song that didn't get used. It was we were talking about the point in Elmer's, like, when he justifies to his gang, the other guys, why they should rob the Indian train.
Yeah.
So he is like Satan in a soft voice, trying to seduce them into this grand act of larceny. So that's what that song was about. But it got replaced by Indian Train.
Yeah.
Yazbek said it's got to have, it's got to have more punch.
Mm-hmm.
So we went with Indian Train.
Yeah. No, I heard it come on. I heard the first couple of words, and I was like, man, this is like precursor stuff. This is something, it was so on theme. And I was like, man, this is something that got rejected, or you did independent, or and I was just like, wow, that's awesome. So that was cool. I really enjoyed really enjoyed stumbling upon that. It's a great song, by the way. A really great song.
Thank you.
Okay, so then tell us about your experience with this, Erik. How did you get
Well,
drug into it, or were you just all in?
I was all in from the beginning. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess he told me the story because he thought I would probably warm up to it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I had not written, well, I wrote some children's musicals through the good graces of Mr. Yazbek. Recommendations, a letter of introduction.
Oh wow.
You're just a toddler of musicals by that
Yes.
point.
So I had a little bit of confidence that I was ready for the big leagues. So I thought it was a great idea. I love the story.
Mm.
But we were both busy. David was very busy with other shows and projects that were more had a little more
Traction.
traction. Exactly. So the whole COVID thing was a great starting point for Dead Outlaw.
Yeah. That's wild, isn't it? The getting stuck in the house for all that time, and then what comes out of it. I mean, it's just.
It also puts you in it puts you in a memento mori kind of thinking about death. I mean,
Right.
I knew two people who died early in COVID, one of whom I had done a musical with, and a couple others who died later. And Erik and I had a musician friend who died, not of COVID, but within that period of time. And, Dead Outlaw, it's called Dead Outlaw.
Yeah.
It's, it put us in mind of writing these songs, which not every song is directly about death, but every song is about death.
Yeah.
Even the ones that are really fun or really angry or really rocking.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a meditation on that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what can happen. But God, tell us about what's the is it Millicent song? I love that one. And the Stranger song, those are incredible songs, and they were performed so, I don't know, it's awesome, I guess is the best word for it.
Yeah, I guess we kind of think of it as like a country ballad
Mm-hmm.
that Emmylou Harris from the 70s
Yeah.
might sing. It's kind of a standalone song that can be taken out of context, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is a good test for any song. I mean, there's so many songs from Broadway that became standards for the greatest jazz musicians of all time. So yeah, that song is, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And what's her name?
Julia.
Julia. Oh my God. Yeah, she's incredible.
I just recorded something with her yesterday. So
yeah. She was incredible. I remember, whenever I went to the off Broadway, and I was just blown away by it. I mean, I was just literally like, because I have those same questions, like, how are you guys going to pull this off? And then I sit down and you guys just roll into the show, and it just doesn't stop, and it just keeps on going and going and going, and the whole time you're just like, this is amazing. And so then, when I came to the Broadway opening, I was amazed at the amount of people that were sitting around me singing the songs, and so they had already been hooked by it, and I was just like, man, this is incredible, it is so incredible. and to be able to see it and hear it and see the crowd reactions to it, and so yeah, that was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the benefits of coming at it from mostly songs first before the dramatization. So all the weight was on for the beginning, all the weight was on the songwriting.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, but I'd written a bunch of, I mean, I'm concurrently as being a composer, I've also been a writer. And so in my head, I was thinking about story, plot, and I'd written a bunch of musicals. So also had a sort of, by this time, a learned understanding of what would be necessary for each song to move the plot forward, to move the character forward, to say something we wanted to say. Interesting thing about this show is, you have two sections. You have his life and his death. His life is fascinating, and his life, you're kind of, it's just like any story. You're cluing into his life, and you're seeing all the mistakes he made, all the action, all the the interactions he had, and that's sort of that's the usual mode of storytelling. And most of those songs, in fact, almost all of them, are action songs or songs about the characters' developments and the plot developments. Once he's dead, all of a sudden you're in a different territory. And this is one of the things that I was really interested in, because you're in a territory where the songwriters, Erik and myself, can start thinking and talking and having characters sing about the things that we want to say, as though it was an album almost, that we want to say about mortality and about living in the present moment and all that kind of stuff. And we were able to do that through characters, some of whom were either exploiting the dead body, Elmer, or who were, bemused by this mummy, or whose careers were being forwarded because of this dead personage. So as songwriters, at least for me, that became the really interesting part of it. There's great songs in both halves, but that was the half that for me was like, this feels like Erik and I are writing an album, which is always a more personal and in a lot of ways a more satisfying experience.
Oh yeah, no, that's I get that, because it's like, watching the show, listening to the music, it's like it's kind of like sitting at home, and you throw a record on the record player and you listen to the album from beginning to end. It's got that, that narrative flow, and I think you could easily get what this story is about just listening to that. I mean, it's like you guys did such a great job of tying that together, and like you said, the character development, and focusing in on the people that are doing the exploiting, and yeah, it's great. I just, like I said, I was shocked when I first met you guys that you guys were doing this, and then I was pleasantly shocked whenever I got to see the finished product, because it totally blew me away. So
yeah,
nice.
Okay, so the show's closed on Broadway right now. What kind of plans you got moving forward for it?
I know that there's going to be more, if you'll excuse the expression, more life to Elmer McCurdy.
Yeah, I know.
I'm hoping, I have a very strong feeling we'll do it. I mean, it'll be done in London fairly soon, maybe next year and a half. And it hopefully will be that production. It won't be the same actors, I doubt it, because that would be very expensive. But I hope it would be the Cromer production that we did off and on Broadway, because it's so beautiful. I like I was telling you earlier, I have a feeling there may be a way, especially after the documentary comes out, there may be a way to reconstitute the production with most or maybe all of the original cast off Broadway. And I do think there may be also a way to, at least to tour, either Erik and I or some other band, to tour the song cycle and do it the way we used to do it. Because when we first conceived it, it was just us and the band playing and me telling the story from a book, a narrative that Itamar Moses wrote, same guy who wrote the musical.
Yeah. I'm seeing some stuff in the chat.
Great.
And they're asking well, somebody named Jennifer Small just said, I hear there's an amazing documentary in the works.
Oh, I've just mentioned it 5 times, Jennifer. Jen is one of the producers of the documentary. She's been so great and working hard, and she's the one who brought us to you in Oklahoma.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's a new cut, which supposedly is we're getting close to finished.
Yeah.
We still need to raise some money for all that stuff that you have to do after you're finished with the cut, like color correction, sound mixing and editing. There's one more sort of tranche to be raised. I guess, I mean, Jennifer knows better than I, but there's a scenario where maybe we do see it on Netflix or Amazon. Certainly Audible was our off-Broadway producer, and Audible is owned by Amazon. So, and I'm still in touch with them. So, and they're the ones who put out, you can hear the entire show, including all the original performances, except done in a studio. So it's beautiful Atmos mix. It's just this amazing audio experience. And that's available on Audible, the Audible platform. So we're hoping that maybe perhaps Amazon becomes the platform for the documentary. And the documentary, it's about my sort of idea for it originally, and what I wanted to do was, we're making a documentary about Elmer McCurdy. Not enough people know this story, but then we're also going to use the songs because there are things to comment on. And it started becoming a lot about Erik and myself in a room, often writing songs or discussing it. There's a lot of footage of us actually writing these songs that you heard on Broadway. So that's now what the documentary is. It's about Elmer, and it's about the creation of these songs and the recording of them, and then the recreation of a Broadway musical. It's weird, just like you thought it was going to be. It's weird.
Yeah, it is. It is weird. It is weird, but it's awesome. Because I'm excited because I think we talked about some pretty cool stuff when you guys were here. And when we were doing the filming and things, and I remember one part, we're sitting upstairs in the library, and we're at that big reading table, and we started talking about karma, and was this some sort of a I don't know, karmic punishment for the life that he had led. And I believe you asked me something about, not being properly buried, and so we kind of riffed off on that one about, is this his karmic punishment for the life he led and not being properly buried. So do you guys remember that? Because I thought it was like, I was like, man, this is some great stuff right here. It's like if anything, if you're gonna put me in your documentary, this is the stuff that's gonna make it.
I remember thinking there's some great stuff. I don't remember those details because between then and now, Erik and I have talked about this show so much.
Yeah.
But I do have memories of sitting at that table with gloves on, and you describing, these these weapons, that we were handling, and the guy who actually shot him, and how you determined that it was actually a Luger, and that it was a Luger that was made before a certain year because the caliber was smaller
Yeah.
than later
Mhm.
Luger. It was just so surprising that it was a Luger to me because
Right.
imagine
Yeah.
a six gun, or something like that.
Right. Well, and it's this gunfight's in 1911, and
Yeah.
it's not during the Wild West times,
Yeah.
and um, so yeah, that's always shocking, and it's like when I figured that out, when I saw that, huh. I was like, I don't think anybody thought of this. They didn't put this stuff together. It's like, I know you mentioned the two books that were written, about it. And in that first one, he had Richard Baskall. He had just like a photocopy of a newspaper article, and it said he was shot by a automatic revolver. All
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh, automatic revolver.
Yeah.
I was like,
What is that?
what is that? What do
Yeah.
they mean by that? And so yeah, so I started looking in, I looked in our files, and I saw that we had, um that donation from the grandson of Stringer Fenton, which is the guy that shoots him. And then we have his guns. So I go up and I start looking at his guns, and I see the Luger, and I pick it up, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't a 9mm Luger. This is a smaller model. And I look on the barrel, because it'll show the caliber and stuff on the barrel, and it's 7.65mm. And I was like, wow, because we have those autopsy drawings, in the collection.
Right.
And it showed, a bullet jacket from a 32 caliber. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, because 7.65mm is 32 caliber in the United States.
Yeah.
And so it was like, at that point I was like, I know this is the gun. How do I prove it? So I contacted the LA County coroners to see if they still had the evidence. And unfortunately, they didn't. They said they had disposed of it in the 80s. And so I was a little disappointed in that, because we've got a forensic school just down the road from us at the University of Central Oklahoma. And I was like, man, I want to go shoot this gun. It's like, because it's in working order, and it's like, I want to go shoot this gun and see if that was the bullet. So we weren't able to do that, but I eventually found a newspaper article where they interviewed Stringer about a week after the gunfight on the whatever you call the train station, the platform. He got interviewed on the platform at the train station in Tulsa. And so it's in Tulsa World article. And he says, yeah, a bullet from my Luger automatic pistol, had entered his chest and traveled almost all the way through his body and into his hip. And I was just like, there we go. It's like, we've got the gun. And
Right.
And so that was pretty awesome. And then
That's amazing.
yeah, and honestly, the only reason I ever even looked into this was because we were contacted by a TV show, that was doing a story on, weird things in museums. And I was like, yeah, we've got, this stuff from the guy that that he was the grandson of the guy that shot him. It was like, let me look. And that was it. And then ever since then, it's just been, one thing after the other, and then boom, you guys show up, and it's become even more, strange,
Well, you get the story, and the Elmer story gets its hooks in you, and you're just like, you're hooked for. We also, I mean, we spoke to you. We also spoke to Svenvold, who wrote the second book,
Yeah.
and who was very poetic. He's a poet and a teacher, and he sort of, that book was very personal in a way.
Mhm.
The memento mori thing. And I spoke to the teamster who found the red Dayglow red
Yeah.
dummy hanging in the amusement park. The teamster who was told to move the dummy, lose the dummy, and the arm comes off and his, like it falls to the ground and there's a bone. He's kind of, he's sort of, his memory is not very good, but
Mhm.
he definitely had his own view on this stuff. It's just interesting because Elmer's story, for you, it was a mystery that elements of which you like dug really deeply into and sort of figured out and solved. For us, it was, something that just became almost a Zen koan, at least for me, it did. I mean, just this idea, just thinking about, because also remember, we're composers who are writing songs, and you sort of live with this illusion of like, well, even when I'm dead, the songs will live on, but it's all these things that we tell ourselves. But so for me, it was just like, well, so what? you know, what does that mean, and what do you do to be remembered? And
Yeah.
that idea, the sunshine of the dead. The if you're an author, the books you leave behind. If you're a recording artist, the records you leave behind. But it's all ephemeral. It all comes down to living in the present moment, and that's where you get to theater, because nothing puts you in the present moment like like really engaging theater where you're live with flesh and blood people in a room together, and there's people on that stage extremely vulnerable, also flesh and blood, singing these songs. And So the whole thing is this really sort of wonderful package of all these elements. A mystery, a true crime story, a
Mhm.
mystery, a religious studies, class, a study in karma, a survey of Americana music as well as Americana itself. So yeah, I get excited even thinking about it again.
Yeah. No, that's just awesome. There was one time I went and was talking about Elmer, and but it was at the Will Rogers Memorial in Claremore, Oklahoma. It's another site that's part of the Historical Society. And so anyway, I'm talking about Elmer, and I was like, I need to figure out a way to kind of tie Will Rogers and Elmer together, and it's just like, how am I going to do that, And then I looked at it, and they're born in the same year, and so yeah, so they're born in the same year,
1880.
yeah, and so here I go with it. I was like, yeah, okay, it's like these guys have a lot in common, and you may not think that they do, but they have a lot in common. They're born the same year. Will Rogers is born to a fairly affluent family. They're doing cattle ranching and banking, and his dad is one of the people that writes the Constitution for the state of Oklahoma. He's a part of that constitutional convention. um he goes off to boarding schools, things like that. Elmer, his mom is a teenage girl. He gets pawned off on his uncle and aunt, and how that goes. It's like once the uncle passes away, the aunt throws him back in the lap of the real mom. God, how much trauma does that cause? you know but then I was like, yeah, they did this, and they were in show business. They both toured the country, and Will, of course, was alive, and Elmer was not, you know. And, you know, he did this, and I was like, they were in movies, you know. It's like, you know, where Rogers had his movie career, and you know, Elmer is in a couple of movies, you know, Narcotic, and what was the other one? She Freak, you know.
That's a later one, yeah.
Yeah, it's a later one.
Yeah.
And so then I hit him with this. And I was like, yeah, really, the only thing that Will has on Elmer is that he's got a Broadway musical about him.
No, well,
and then I go,
yes, right.
Then I go, oh, wait a minute. I said, oh, wait a minute. It's like there's a Broadway musical in production now on
That's
the life
funny.
of Elmer McCurdy, and these people about just fell out of their chairs,
That's
you know,
great.
because they were just like totally amazed, and I'm just like, this is, you know, this is awesome, you know, it really is, and so, yeah. Anyway, I love doing it, and just to see the expression on the people's faces, and that was really the first time I talked about you guys doing that. You know, it's like I hadn't really had, you know, we're still coming out of COVID and stuff like that, so I hadn't really had a chance to weave your show into this story, you know, of Elmer McCurdy. So,
You know what you may be able to do, actually, Michael? Lincoln Center Library for the Performing Arts has a well shot video of the entire show for archival purposes. And until there's a feature, or until, you know, if the documentary doesn't have what you need, you could actually probably, just as a courtesy, they could send it over to you, and you could show a clip, you know, like somewhere in the museum next to the, yeah. I mean, that's just one possibility.
Hey, I tell you what, that's an excellent idea, and I know in the next few years we're wanting to redo our galleries, and I know we want to spend a little more floor space on Elmer and that story, and so if you guys have things that you want to donate, we would be more than happy to
Yeah, we were
those for you.
we were asked by the Library of Congress to donate some of our, you know, scores, and and we decided we would donate one of our mandolins, you know, that we wrote it on, and then our current administration fired everyone at the Library of Congress.
Yeah.
So we do have some stuff we could lend you.
Yeah. Well, we'd love it. It's like, I think we talked about when you guys were here, you know, getting all of because, you know, we got the Richard Bascall stuff, you know, from his family. It's like they donated all of his
you brought the boxes out.
Right. You know, so we're going through that, and you know, if I'd love to get everything, all the notes from anybody that's done anything with this story, you know, here, and just keep them here. And we kind of joke about changing the name to the Center for Elmer McCurdy Studies.
You know, if the show sort of, you know, if we start touring it, if the documentary is popular, if there's a feature, you know, that's going to be like a massive
Yeah.
You know, it's even going to be more true. So
yeah.
And of course it's also ironic, and because here we are sort of continuing the you know, yes, it's scholarly on your behalf, but here we are sort of continuing the exploitation of Elmer McCurdy, except that what does that mean? What does it mean to be exploiting this criminal's, you know, name? Is it disrespectful, or is it art? You know, these are just big questions with a big question mark. And one of the things when we were writing the show that I kept saying was, I want the audience to leave with just giant question marks over their heads.
Oh yeah.
Not with a sense of like, now I see why life is okay, or now I see why life is terrible. Just big question marks, because the only way you can really get get to the heart of this stuff is by actually living with it and thinking about it, not distracting from it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, how long did you guys spend with this? It's like how many hours were put into, creating these songs that, ended up into this show. And then just I can just imagine the amount of time you spend, trying to find the funding, and all of that, and selling this to somebody, to make them want to do it. I mean, it's just, I spend God knows how much of my work week on Elmer, fielding questions, getting requests to look at stuff. I mean, it's just it's I don't know. People are just extremely fascinated by it.
It's a great story once you hear it.
It's a great story once you hear it.
It's a very hard story to attract people to until it's like a product. Like when you're watching Shark Tank, and one of the sharks says, it's one of those, I can't invest in that product because it's the kind of thing you have to demonstrate. Now if you're doing infomercials, then you have an hour to demonstrate how amazing this particular fish cleaning mechanical, but it's Elmer's story is this story that once you hear it, you can't shake it, but you've got to hear it,
Yeah.
So
You got to hear it. You got to get the hook, and, that hook is him getting found in the fun house, and
that's when the mystery starts.
Yeah, that's where the story starts. There's no story without them finding him hanging in that fun house.
I always forget that when I'm trying to pitch this or something. I always forget to start in 1976. Don't start in 1880. Don't start.
Yeah. That's the way to tell it.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, do other people? Is there going to be some questions and answers from other people? I'm just wondering because I'm looking at the time.
I mean, yeah, we can field some questions
if they have any, but if they don't, that's also okay.
I mean, yeah, it's like, well, I'm down to answer any questions that we want. Somebody said a group field trip. It was like, well, where you guys want to go on the field trip? Like, I'm always down for a field trip. Oh, the UK. Okay. And group field trip to the UK, the West End. Do
it. Well,
I think I need a job in the show if you guys go to London.
Okay. Play guitar,
I bouncer or something. Okay, question. Has anything uncanny happened around the museum or the stage production that seemed like Elmer was making himself known? Ooh.
That's interesting.
It is interesting.
Well, somebody came claiming to be a relative.
Oh, yeah. We get that a lot, too.
But that's not uncanny. They want a ghost story. Is what
they want a ghost story, yeah.
We don't have any of those, I don't think, right?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's like, honestly, another thing, it's like the first director of the museum here, Fred Olds, if it wasn't for him, there's probably not a story, because, he went out and assembled a team basically to go out and identify the body because they thought they knew who it was. They thought it was Elmer. And so they went out there to identify it. And then, he convinces them to bring the body back here to Guthrie when Guthrie doesn't play a role in this story, no role whatsoever. And so really the only thing they were doing is they were trying to attract people to come to Guthrie, and they've done a great job. They have done a great job with it because it's one of the big draws. It's one of the big draws here. And it's an international draw. It's like we get people from, as far away as Japan coming here to look at the gun and to go out to the cemetery and visit the grave. And I got a big kick out of people showing up here with playbills and
Oh,
taking
yeah.
pictures. Taking pictures of their playbills at the grave, And I'll tell you what, I did it first. Because I went to the opening, the off-Broadway opening, and I came back and I went out there and I set it up against the thing and took a picture of it and then put it out on social media. So I did it first. I'm just telling
All right. Thank you.
I'm laying claim to that one. But as far as anything weird with Elmer here in the museum, no, I don't think anything weird's happened like that. Oh yeah. Some of the stuff in the books are not accurate. There's things that they made assumptions, back in 1977, and wrote an article in this magazine here in Oklahoma Today, and they misidentified the weapon. They talked about him being a bad outlaw because he did this, and then in my deep dive into stuff, I find that this was just the byproduct of using explosives, the melting of the silver into the bottom of the safe, things like that. It's just those people that first had access to the story just didn't have access to the things I had, and it doesn't mean, I don't think it is as I was a better, historian than these other folks. I just had better access, I mean, I could look for key terms and search in newspapers that, in the 70s and 80s and early 2000s, they're using microfilm, machines,
right.
and having to scroll through and read stuff on their own. And so yeah, but that's just how history goes. It's every generation, there's some sort of an upgrade in the way we do this, and we're able to bring to light better information. So that's all I did. I just added to what these other people did.
Right.
And then in doing so, I'm tied to that story for the rest of my life, just like you guys are tied to this story for the rest of your lives. And maybe someday, 50 years from now, some other people will be talking about this and they'll be talking about us. So crazy. What else do we got? That's all the recording. There's an episode of the TV show 911, and it was a clear homage to the Elmer story. No, we didn't hear from anybody about that, but there's so much of this information that's online. It's out there. There's stuff that I've done that's out there, and so you can find all these bits and pieces of this story. But I did go. I was talking about Elmer at a library in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is a suburb, and there was a young girl fascinated with the story, and she had seen that 911 episode, and then saw that we were doing a program about it, and she was there, and that's what hooked her, was watching that TV show, and she was just fascinated the whole time, and she's asking questions. I mean, it was just, it's like awesome, because I love people to ask questions and be able to answer stuff. What else? About Dr. Noguchi. Yeah, a little bit. Didn't he publish a autobiography or a memoir?
Just came out recently.
Yeah.
He's like 100 years old or something. He did. It came out like a month or 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, and I think our documentary, Jen went out there went out to LA or somewhere in California with a film crew to interview him, to be in our documentary. I haven't seen the footage yet.
Oh, she says we did. There's also a documentary about him.
Oh, that came out at the same time as the book, right?
Okay. And yeah, no, he's fascinating because of the various people that he was involved with. I mean, he's the medical examiner for Marilyn Monroe, Bobby Kennedy.
And we have a song. There's a song in our show that's just him
Yeah,
singing.
we didn't mention.
Yeah.
Funny, we didn't mention Bobby Kennedy. Damn it!
Yeah.
Can we do a rewrite?
A little late for that,
How about a
but
whole verse?
I do. Oh, and I'll tell you what, I think that's probably one of the best songs. I mean, it is full blown, Broadway musical show tune, and it's just incredible. And God, what was the actor that was
Tom Sesma.
Yeah, oh my God. He was just incredible with
Yeah,
that.
he's great. He plays it very straight. He plays it very Noguchi-like, and then he grabs the mic that dangles over the body while you're doing your autopsy. He just grabs it and he becomes Tony Bennett, basically.
Yeah, no, seriously, he was so good. And I remember talking to him, after the show, and I was just like, dude, I love that song. You're awesome. And I was kind of starstruck by it, because I was just like, wow, this is such a, just talented person, and everybody on the show was. I mean, it was just, I couldn't see anybody that didn't put in a fantastic performance. I mean, it was great.
Yeah, he was one of the actors. Tom and Julia were the two actors that the moment we saw them and the moment they opened their mouths, we knew that these were the people.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. How many people did you see for Elmer? Was that
Elmer?
It was a lot.
Well, it was a lot, but I knew who it was going to be. I mean, I also casting is very interesting because I hate it. But when Tom Sesma walked in, I remembered him from like 30 years ago because I had heard him pretending to sing like Sinatra, just hanging around backstage at something, and I thought, oh, we're going to end up casting him. But with the guy who played Elmer, his name is Andrew Durand, who is amazing. There was a show on Broadway called Shucked, which is now on tour. He's not in it on tour. And I saw him and I thought, that's Elmer. That's our Elmer. So I put his name in with the casting director, who it turns out was his best friend. And he came in and we all realized, yes, indeed, he should do it. But that was an interesting thing. Like I had seen him and just thought, that's him, like a year before.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no. And God, what he had to go through in that show, I mean, it's just like, like you said, the half of it, half of it, he's alive and living the Elmer life. And then,
he's alive, and he's screaming and he's singing rock songs and ballads. Yeah. And then the second half, he's basically motionless, propped up in a coffin with a gun in his hand, and he doesn't sing again until near the end of the show. But it's pretty much a tour de force that I've never seen anything like it before.
I know. I mean, I was just like, there's no way I could do this. And, it's like, I could not stand still that long.
Yeah.
And even if you paid me, I don't even think I could do it. I don't even think I could pull that off.
Well, figure out your price because, we might need you to do it on the next.
Okay. That's funny. And, what about some of the other guys? It's like Erik, when I saw it off Broadway, you were in it, you were in the show. And so what led you to not do the Broadway version?
Yeah, Erik, what led you to not do the Broadway version?
I am not good with repetition.
Okay.
Say that again.
I
Can you
am
say that
not.
Okay.
If I was a young person today, I would probably be diagnosed with several learning disabilities.
I'm
And
kind of wondering if all of us wouldn't be. So
so doing something the same way over and over again without
yeah,
any room for variation, no matter how small, is not my skill set.
yeah.
So
No, I
I
get
had
you.
about say, 8 weeks. I could do 8 weeks.
And that's what he did, pretty
That's
much.
what I did.
Yeah, yeah. I get you.
I begged him to do it on to move to Broadway and do it on Broadway because I like his voice so much and he's such a great
Yeah,
player of like a million different string instruments. But he kept saying, I just can't. I completely understood because I wouldn't have been able to either. Just to
yeah,
do it every 8 times a week.
I
Yeah.
would have this feeling like I would show up the next day. I always enjoyed doing it, but there was always that moment before the show where I would just think, I just did it. Why won't it stay done?
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. No, I totally understand that. I was like,
Yeah, there was
you got to
something
have
about
that. You got to have that novel stuff going on in your life to, you know. Yeah, I get you.
there was a roll
I
the
would hate
boulder
it
up the
too.
hill day after day
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like
aspect
Sisyphus,
for me, but other people don't experience it that way, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I was so impressed with David said, your ability to play all those different instruments. It's like you're just casually changing instruments, and then boom, you go into it, and you're just like, wow. You know, so
Well, thanks. Yeah,
that's
I mean, it is. I'm primarily a
impressive.
guitarist, and the other instruments were spawned. You know, the tree trunk is for me is the guitar,
Hmm.
and then those other things sort of came out of necessity and desire as after years of playing from way back.
Yeah. So what got you into the guitar and playing? Just
Uh, when I think about it, it's pretty standard. A man of my age, like guitar was the thing.
hmm
It was an available avenue to distinguish yourself if you weren't going to be a baseball player or a football player, or you didn't have academic prowess.
hmm
And I had none of those things. So music, that's what I chose. And guitar was kind of like the instrument of the moment and the day. And it was an easy choice to make at the time. I was really part of the time and age I was growing up in. There was nothing bold about it.
Yeah,
It was
it
just
just
out of social
was.
necessity.
Yeah, this is just what it was going to be. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild. And so how long have you done it like professionally?
Well, a long time now.
Like
Uh,
from what age? You don't have to throw
well,
the
by the
years
time
out,
I
but
was 19, I was playing.
19. Okay.
Yeah, 1920. That was it. I was around New York, hustling
Mm,
gigs, traveling a little bit. And back then you could kind of do that. You could kind of do that and make a living. Um, these days it's even less. There are less opportunities for young musicians.
yeah. Okay. But you seem to be still out hustling gigs too.
I am.
You play. It seems like you're playing somewhere all the time.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Well,
And do you?
you're
In
playing with
fact,
Natalie. You're going to be playing with Natalie Merchant on November 2nd at the Tarrytown Music Hall, I see.
you were right.
Yeah.
When I say in my travels, in summer I was traveling and playing. I was up in Maine, and we passed a sign that said Searsmont, Maine.
Which is
Wow. Yeah.
where Elmer was born, everybody.
Yeah.
So I said, let's make a left. Can we make a left? I want to see Searsmont, Maine.
Oh wow.
So it's a very small town, closer, I forget what large, maybe closer to Camden or something, one of the
Hmm.
larger towns. There's not really any, it's just one street. You see remnants of maybe what was a store, old wooden New England houses. So that was kind of a stirring when you talk about something uncanny.
Hmm.
At that moment, it did feel I kind of felt ghosts standing there in Sears Mines.
Right.
This would have
Yeah.
been the exact, and some of those structures might have even been there,
There. Yeah.
was there. Um, and then I thought about the story is so ultimately Oklahoma centric.
Hmm.
Now, when he showed up in Oklahoma, he must have had a very thick New England accent because
Yeah, I would assume. Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I would
very
assume.
thick because the accent gets broader and thicker the deeper you go north and the deeper you
Hmm.
go into Maine, and especially off the coast of Maine where Searsmont is. Um, it must have sounded almost outrageous to the people in Oklahoma.
Well, yes, I'll kind of speak to this. Yes and no, because you're talking 1911, and you're getting people from all over the Midwest,
Right,
rolling into here, and there was people from everywhere,
right. So
and
they're
so
used to a very
so yeah,
variety.
so I think it's what the accents now have kind of morphed into probably wouldn't have been as prevalent at the time, and I don't think it would have been um, that out of the ordinary to hear people from all these different places,
Sure. Yeah, I get it.
just
Yeah,
because of the need to, hit the road just to work,
right. Traveling to
and
work.
traveling to work and all those kind of things. So maybe not, and who knows how much of that had kind of, I don't know, sheared off in his time in Kansas and in the army and things like that. But
Right, he
no,
might have
it
remembered.
is, yeah, it is. That is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
And there's no that I could tell, and I haven't really checked. There's no mention, nobody in Searsmont, they're not going for claiming any. There's no McCurdy awareness as far as I
right,
can tell.
There
that's
will
funny.
be. There
That's
will be.
funny. There will be.
I got to get going. I'm sorry. It's 2:05. I have to
Okay.
sign off. This was really fun though, Mike. Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you guys for doing this. I appreciate it, and you know, we're here for you anytime you need us. So, um, yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And anyone who was on this call, come to New York, visit Erik. He'll put you up and he'll feed you.
That
Promise.
is
Got it.
awesome.
Bye now.
All
Bye.
right.
Thanks.
Well, Erik, do you want to keep talking?
All right. What do I? Yeah, I could wrap up summation. I feel like, and I'm not often optimistic. I feel like we will probably. I feel like we're going to be back in Guthrie at some point.
I do too. I do too. I think, yeah, I'm for sure you guys will be here at some point, and or I'll have to meet you guys somewhere else.
Yeah,
Like I
that's
said,
right.
if you go to London,
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Have you been to London?
I have. I've been a
I
couple
haven't been
times.
there in a while. Yeah, I hope that happens.
Yeah,
Really.
that would be awesome. I
All
have
right.
friends. Okay.
This has been fun.
It has been fun. It has been fun. It's like, we didn't really talk about it while David was here, but when you guys came, we just all just started talking, and it was so simple and easy, um, that I figured that it would be the same way when we did this today. That
Yeah,
we could
absolutely.
just
It
roll
really
into the
was.
conversation and just keep going with it. So,
That was one
um,
of my favorite trips, and I've traveled a hell of a lot,
mhm.
but when I'm traveling for music, it's usually about music. So I'm going to places,
Yeah.
like I'm going to Dallas and it's on the circuit for a
Mhm.
musician. And a place like Guthrie is not on the circuit.
All right.
So in a lot of ways, I felt like it was kind of the first time I was seeing America.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I wasn't in Indianapolis or in all these major cities or major hubs. So, and I know Guthrie's not a small town, but it was exotic in a way. In a way.
I love that. I love it.
I mean, not like
It's like who are these people? Because
yeah, it was
weren't
what
there
day did you say?
cattle? Weren't there like cattle walking down the street
Yeah, there was
here?
10. I was like, holy wow. What was the day called? What was the parade?
It's 89ers Day. Yeah,
Right,
it's so it's
89ers Day,
the
right.
it's the celebration of the land run of 1889 that opened Oklahoma to non-native settlement. All right, so there's the elevator speech.
Right. Okay.
So that's what it was. Yeah, you guys are here on one of the biggest days of the year for Guthrie. And I know we're walking around the museum and stuff, and out onto the balcony to watch the parade, and there's like 500 people coming through the museum. I mean, it was just wall to wall people. So yeah, exotic.
Yeah, because there was a westernness there that has been erased further west. Like,
Yeah.
you don't feel it in New Mexico or Arizona quite as much, at least not where I've been.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Oklahoma Territory and even Pawhuska was unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
Really, you can feel the 19th century there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In ways that you don't further out west. It's sort of been overlooked. It's been preserved in a way.
In a way, yeah. Yeah. It's that whole flyover state, thing. And the land run of 1889, we're talking about the closing of the frontier,
Right.
is it 1890, and that's because of the land run of 1889. And being having traveled and seen things, and being in multiple European cities and stuff like that, you're just like, man, we are still kind of out on the frontier, here.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean it in a bad way or anything like that.
No.
It's
It
just
was a
that,
good way.
it's just that here we are, and we're still growing, but then again, we're not, because a lot of the places, out
Right.
past the
Nobody's moving
cities,
there.
they're
Right.
not. Yeah. They're going away, and everybody's sucking into the, I guess what they call the Dallas megapolis, and I mean, if we had high speed trains, we would basically be suburbs of Dallas,
Right.
and so we're just kind of getting sucked into that orbit. So yeah, it is. It's wild, and you go to the cultural things here, museums and things like that, and they're all supported through people that made their money off of oil,
Right.
and so it's like all that is tied to the oil industry, which is awesome, giving back to the community and things like that.
Sure.
And so yeah, it's a different world, man. And because I remember going to New York and just roaming around New York City, because I'd never been until I came up for the that first Elmer opening.
Oh, is that
And
right?
yeah, I'd been all over the place, and I'd never been to New York. And so that was culture shock for me, not a bad way, but just
Right. I'm sure.
I'm just walking around and I'm like, wow, that's cool. It's like, oh, I recognize that building. Just you see these things, and it's like you fall into tourist, and everything is exotic. So I'm looking at the exotic when I was there. Yeah,
that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, same type of thing. And so are you on tour now with Natalie Merchant, or is that
at the
it's
end
starting later at the end of the month?
At the end of the month. It's just Northeast this time. I think she's happy and I'm happy. We were just like, let's not get on a plane.
Oh, okay, okay,
Let's
okay. That's pretty
go
cool.
around here. Then
Is it like smaller places or?
some are smaller, some are bigger, and it's just the two of us. I mean, there's a crew, there's a tour manager and a sound
Mhm.
person, um, but just the two of us on stage, which I like because it keeps me, you know, it keeps it unpredictable in a way that I
Yeah,
like. So I
yeah,
get because I don't like repetition. So I
yeah,
have to be on my toes. Something could go wrong. Something I like when something can go wrong. Well, especially in music, because it's just music. No one's going to get hurt.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
so yeah, that suits me fine to just go the two of us.
yeah. That's cool. What about your other bands? Kind of tell us about, because you seem to be in multiple.
Yes,
Uh,
I write and sing a little bit in a band called Hazmat Modine with a friend of mine who's a virtuoso harmonica player. We have a horn section, tuba player, violinist. It's it's very Americana in a way. That is a little bit my thing. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so it's what I like and it's what I gravitated to at a certain time in my 20s. And I was like, this is where
yeah,
I settle musically. Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, we go to Europe a lot with that band, and that's who I was up in Maine with in the summer. And as I said, I write songs for that band and co-write in that band. And then I have a trio with two players from that band, the harmonica player and the violinist, and we just sort of play in town at the moment. Let me see what else. And then just sort of freelance guy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's it. That's all I
I
got
think
done.
that's it. Is that it?
Yeah.
What's the name of the one with the two from the Hazmat Modine
Oh,
band?
that's Byzantine Stomp.
Yeah.
Just under my name, Erik Della Penna's Byzantine Stomp.
Mhm.
There's a lot of instrumentals in there. I kind of wanted it to be songs, but improvisation involved and sort of fake ancient music.
I love that.
I really
I
like
love that.
most of what I've experienced in the world was probably through television and movies because when I
Yeah.
was a kid in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, right, right.
So I really like Hollywood early or mid or 1970s, 1980s television conception of historical events. Sort of
Oh my God. Yeah.
like
No, yeah, we
if
deal
they're
with,
in ancient Rome, they put the composer makes a certain type of music that is
yeah,
they have no way of knowing what the music sounded like, but
I
they'll
know,
think
right? But you hear that, you know what's coming,
right, you know what's coming.
you know
So
what's
I
coming.
want
Yeah.
music based on that.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like fake academic music.
Yeah. Okay. Now that makes a lot of sense, because I've listened to it. I've listened to all your different bands and things and just because you guys are fascinating. The things that you've done and the things that David have done, it's just fascinating stuff.
Oh,
And to be able to interact with you guys on a certain level, it's been pretty cool.
oh, well, thank you.
And
Thanks for
being
reminding.
able to follow what you guys are doing and just the fact that it's like if I do stuff on social media, you guys like it. And it's like from the day you guys first came here, it's like you guys kind of been in contact with me.
Yeah, you're our guy.
You know,
You're our guy in Oklahoma.
I know, right?
Well,
And so
somebody
it's
should
just
tell.
kind
We're
of
always we every time anything Elmer comes up. Well, somebody should tell Michael Williams. We got to tell Michael.
yeah.
So
It's just crazy. It's
yeah.
so crazy. And one of the people on here is his name's Chantry, and he's like my boss, and he is like a David Yazbek super fan.
Oh,
And when everybody was first talking to you guys, he was here, and I was like, yeah, and Erin, she's like, tell him what you did last week, and I was like, oh yeah, here's what I did, da 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 da, and I was like, some Broadway producers, and Chantry's like, well, do you know their names? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, what are they? And I told him. He's just like, about how to melt down,
Right. Wow.
and he's like, I love that. It's like, he said something like, this is my favorite, my current favorite Broadway composer. And I was just like, oh my God, that's crazy.
Wow, that's great. That's great.
But he's like a trained actor and, theater stuff. So this was right in his wheelhouse. And so that was cool. That was cool to be able to, it was cool to be able to name drop,
Yeah, of course. But speaking of name drop, let's talk about now. There was a guy, this is gossipy.
Okay.
Guthrie, when we were in Guthrie, we met an interesting guy. He had a store on the corner. Was it at the corner? It was right on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
What did he make there? He made interesting tacos and he sold, it was an unusual store. Was it chocolates?
Is
It
it
was
Pollard's?
Pollard's Gentleman's Jerky,
Yeah.
and he made shoes.
Yeah. He makes shoes. Yeah. Yeah. No, he
Still
makes
there?
some cool shoes. Yeah. Was that Jennifer?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that's funny.
I remembered, and I hate to see Erik struggle.
Yeah. No,
Well,
yeah,
what's-
yeah.
Paul was his name?
Well, it's called Pollard's Gentleman Jerky.
Right, right.
And they have beef jerky. Oh, great. And they sell cigars now, so that's even better. So
He's still there.
he's still there. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
all right.
awesome.
All
That
right.
is awesome. Yeah, such a niche little shop, in Guthrie.
Yeah, that blew me away. I was looking at this place.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
You're not gonna
crazy.
find that in New York City.
Yeah, that's
So-
crazy. Dude, I'm gonna go down there and talk to him here in a little bit. Then
Yeah, tell him we said hello. Yeah,
I
Yeah.
will. That's awesome.
All right. Maybe I should go.
God, that's crazy.
All right, I gotta go.
Okay, all right.
All right,
That
I've had a
sounds
good
good.
time.
It's been great. Yeah, and thanks again. I really
pleasure.
appreciate it. It's like you guys have been so generous, so I'm really thankful.
Well, thanks for asking us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, till next time.
All right, man.
All right.
We will see you later.
All right, take care, Michael.
All right. Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right. Okay. Well, cool. I guess our guests have departed. Does anybody have questions? I'll answer questions if anybody has anything. Will there be a link to the recording of this? Yeah, we're going to figure that out. So I've been recording the whole time, and we'll probably post it on our Facebook page, Oklahoma Territorial Museum. So yeah, we'll have one. All right. Anything else? Well, thank everybody for coming and joining us today, and hopefully we were entertaining, and I think we probably were. So thank you for coming, and we'll post a link on our thing on our social medias. All right, thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you, Michael.
Uh-huh.